For our second award, would you please welcome the 2017 Roberts Wesleyan College Alumnus of the Year, John Walsh, class of 1990, and Dr. Rod Bassett as they come to the stage.
It's my privilege to introduce John Walsh. Apparently, John has many fond memories of his Roberts years. Moving into Carpenter Hall as a freshman for the second time, the first time was as a 2-day-old baby with his parents, who were the Carpenter Hall resident directors. And then there was meeting the famous NBA Hall of Famer, Dr. J. Julius Erving, when he helped to open the Voller Athletic Center in 1987. But most of all, John remembers the lifelong friendships that were made and kept. Relationships with faculty were key too. Professors like Harold Hurley, David Basinger, and Charles Herman challenged John and set him on a journey to be the best academic he could be. Dr. Charles Herman, former professor of history at Roberts, writes the following of John. The mix of Canadian and U.S. students at Roberts provided a learning environment that was delightfully rich and expansive. Collectively, the students at Roberts were among the best I encountered during my teaching career, and John would rank with the best of the best. Among the qualities that made John an exceptional student, the following were especially remarkable. He was both academically informed and practical. He was not superficial or satisfied with mediocre performance, and he always was dependable. Dr. Herman continues to say, for example, I depended on John to get the Model UN program up and running at Roberts. He had the primary responsibility for training our student delegates, and he wrote the program handbook that we used thereafter. Fortunately, this experience was critical when John applied for graduate studies in Canada. It helped him gain admission to a distinguished program and a teaching assistant position as well. And then, Dr. Dave Basinger wrote of John, as was true of many students, John was bright. He consistently demonstrated the ability to understand and analyze even the most abstract philosophical concepts. However, unlike some bright students, John was an eager learner who really desired to interact with the material. John had definite opinions on most issues and was quite willing to share them. However, he was willing to consider other points of view and modify his own if convinced that that was necessary. And he always respected the feelings of those with whom he disagreed. All this, of course, did not only make him an ideal student, it served him well later in life. John went on from Roberts to make his mark in the political landscape of Canada, officially beginning his political career just after graduating from Roberts. In the early 90s, he served as a senior political staffer in the Prime Minister's Office of the Minister of National Defense in Ottawa. After graduating from law school, John began to balance both his law profession and work in politics. John became president of the Conservative Party of Canada in 2009, while continuing to work as a lawyer, a position he held until just recently. As part of his duties, John traveled the country helping members of the party win elections and ultimately helping support former Prime Minister Stephen Harper as he earned a majority government for 10 years. Currently, John is the managing director and general counsel to one of Canada's largest pension funds, managing the legal, compliance, privacy, and governance departments. He's responsible for operations in the London, Sydney, and Toronto offices, as well as chairman of the investment committee approving more than 90 private equity and infrastructure investments worldwide. John lives in Toronto with his wife, Jillian. His children are John, Duncan, Liam, Georgia, and Finian. In my interactions with John, I have always found him to be winsome, a careful listener, well-spoken, and a follower of Jesus Christ. So it's my privilege to introduce John Walsh.
That is an extremely warm introduction and welcome. Thank you very much, Dr. Bassett. In driving down from Toronto this morning, I was reflecting that it was 30 years ago exactly right now, while I was still a senior at Churchville Chili, that I My dad wasn't comfortable with the amount of spares I had, and so I also enrolled as a freshman at Roberts at the same time, and my first class was Intro to Psychology with Dr. Bassett. 30 years ago right now. Man, that feels like it went by pretty quickly. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Porterfield. Thank you for the alumni, for the students who are here. Thank you for being here, the faculty. And for Roberts Wesleyan as a whole, I can't tell you how much this place has meant to me, how important it has been in my formation and my journey. And I can't tell you how much I love Roberts Wesleyan College. The flood of nostalgia and emotion and good feeling that washes over me standing up here is something that I hope each and every one of you experience at some point in your life. You have to get to 49, I think, before you start to really feel the things that you did when you were your age and how important they were when you were my age. I want to share a few of those things with you. And I talked to a friend of mine who didn't go to Roberts in Toronto a couple of days ago, and I mentioned a couple of things I thought I would say, and he said, "That's a terrible idea. These 19 and 20-year-olds are invincible. They don't want to hear anything about the things that have happened in your life and what they might mean to them. They'll be ignoring you and waiting for lunch and trying to get out of here as fast as possible." I said, "Well, you didn't go to Roberts. I feel a little more strongly about the student body here, and I won't take much of your time, but I do want to leave you with three thoughts. Let me come back to them in detail, but what they are is that you're going to experience failure in your life even though you don't quite know it yet. Number two, you should participate anyway. And number three, don't participate alone, participate in community. I've learned those things here. Let me tell you how it happened. Life is a struggle, and some of you have already experienced that, and some of you will experience it. I guarantee all of you, by the end of your lives, will have experienced lots of failure. It's not about that. It's about what you do when you experience it. It's about the measure of you in how you handle the curves that life is going to throw you. Dr. Bassett mentioned Dr. Livermore. I remember very well, I think probably my dad does too. In second year, as a sophomore here, I wrote one of the worst papers that any human being has ever written. I thought I could get away with it because I was 18 and cocky, and I thought I knew a lot. And I handed it in to Dr. Livermore. I think it was an Old Testament. I still have the paper at home. I was going to bring it, but I don't want to lose it because it's been too important to me. When I was sitting near the front of the class and he handed the papers back, anybody from 3 rows away would have been able to see the massive D- at the top of my paper in red felt pen. Underneath it, he wrote, "You deserved an F. Next time I'll give it to you." I was stunned. I was not used to that grade, and I was ashamed. And I remember going back to my room, and it shouldn't have been as big a deal, I guess, as it was, but for me it was a moment that I remember to this day. I think about it a lot. It was a turning point for me because I thought I could get away with no effort. And Dr. Livermore reminded me that life is about putting in effort, and even when you fail, which I should have done in that paper, thanks be to him for not doing that, I took that away, and my academic career after that was different because I realized that it takes effort. The rest of my life has had lots of failures in it too. For all the successes that I've experienced, politics is a great way of learning about failure. I've been a part of election campaigns that have been the biggest, well, one of them was the biggest failure in Canadian political history. How's that? We started with 190 seats and ended up with 2. It was a disaster, and I was a part of that. But it's about what you do after you experience that failure. And Roberts, through Dr. Livermore and many other ways, taught me those valuable lessons. Second thing is, whether it's hard, whether it's a struggle, whether you're going to fail, you've got to participate anyway. There are lots of people in this world that you'll meet who go to work, come home, flip on Netflix, watch 3 hours of TV, go to bed, wake up, do the next thing, do the same thing the next day. And that's one way to live, but it's not the way that Roberts taught me. It's not the way that Roberts is teaching you. It's teaching you to participate. One of the great things about a school of this size is that you have the opportunity to participate. I wasn't a particularly good basketball player, as my fellow Roberts alumnus and dear friend Brad Garrett, who I played basketball with here, would tell you. Jeff Miller, who I played high school basketball with at Churchville Chile, will especially tell you that I wasn't very good. But Dr. Ken Sisson, who was the basketball coach here at the time, when I went and tried out, he essentially said, hey, you're not very good, but you should participate anyway. And I went on to sit on the bench a lot and then became a student assistant basketball coach, learned a lot about basketball, learned a lot about participating. I played baseball here. I was in student government here. Dr. Herman mentioned that I was a part of starting the Model UN program here. I didn't know anything about politics when I started. When I finished, I was addicted to politics. I went on to Washington, I went on to Ottawa, and my whole life has been about the political arena, and I learned that here through participating, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like you have the time. The third thing is don't participate alone. One of the things you're experiencing here is community. Kurt Kettinger's dad, Leroy Kettinger, Dr. Kettinger was the dean of students when I was here, and he preached the theme of community all of the time. And I remember it vividly because I didn't understand what it meant. I had friends and I had family. I didn't understand that that was a community, but there are lots of communities that you will participate in. Grab onto them. You know, the friendships I formed here, including a group of people that I'm still very close to today, including Brad, who took the day and came in from Rochester, but those people are spread across North America. They're dear friends of mine. They're the community that I started with here. I have many more communities that I've been a part of, whether it's your faith community, whether it's your family, whether it's people you continue to know and love from here. Embrace community, because when you do fail, while you're participating, the community that surrounds you are the people that will help you pick yourself up, help encourage you to do more, help encourage you to say yes to more opportunities. And so remember those three things as you're sitting through lunch, if you care to. Those are things I learned here. You have the opportunity to learn those things and all kinds of other things while you're here. Don't lose that opportunity. Don't miss the chance that's been given to you to be at what I believe to be one of the greatest institutions in the world. I've been to a lot of schools. I've met a lot of people from a lot of schools. I love this place, and it's a delight to be back. Thank you very much.